definition of insanity. Leader Fan Radio Network.
Okay, calm down.
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 18 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We welcome you back to a Monday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a decidedly chilly Monday afternoon for, what, are we in early April yet? Yeah,
April 6th.
April 6th, here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro. I host the program. Guardsy is back, and we are delighted to be joining you today for a 3-hour Gilligan's Island-like tour out at 6, I'm assuming, for Minnesota Wild hockey. Is that correct?
Incorrect. We are out because of the national championship game. Westwood One's coverage of the national championship game.
Is that right?
It is, yeah.
Interesting.
UConn and Michigan.
UConn and the unconquerable Michigan Wolverines. Who knew that one day? Think about this. They are on the verge of doing something that the Fab Five never did.
Yeah.
They're back being saluted and feted and all those sorts of things as a group. But they never won the big one, did they?
They lost 2 straight championship games.
Think about it. Michigan, I'm going to guess, is a 7.5-point favorite over UConn.
Wow. Let me pull it up. I don't even know. Go to Gamecast.
Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line will be rebooted shortly. 646-86. 646-86. Good, very good uglydeck.com guest lineup today. I'm very pleased with the lineup because it not only includes Monday regular Jonny Athletic at the bottom of this hour, it includes former Major League Baseball umpire Tim Cheetah at 5:30. I cannot wait to hear what Tim has to say about the new ball strike system. Because we know, as he told us during the State Fair, he's in great favor of it and is looking for more of it. So we'll see what he has to say at 5:30. And at 4:30, we're back in space, ladies and gentlemen. Most of you know that by now. Is it Artemis? That's the project?
I think that's how we pronounce it.
And as a result, how about a visit with our old friend, former WCCO TV star, Randy Kay, who has... You want to talk about a survivor? I'll ask her, but I got to believe she's been at CNN for over 20 years.
Sounds
and
about right.
However long it is, that's easier said than done, man. New management coming in, new people coming in and out. You're in vogue and then you're out of vogue, all that sort of thing. But she continues to do her solid reportage, and she has been all over the Artemis story. In fact, I think now she is in Houston, gunbelt tight. She's going to call our hotline at 4:30, perhaps 4:35, after she does her hourly CNN bit with Jake Tapper. How good is that? So she's going to be on with Jake Tapper 1 minute on CNN, and then she's calling us.
That's part of her genius, is she is relied upon for all the big shots, right? She worked with AC forever.
She
still does,
she
right?
Does, I think, occasionally, yes.
And then obviously she does New Year's Eve, where she does whatever they ask her. Taking gummies, getting drunk on cruise ships.
New Year's drunken Eve is what they call it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But she is like a cult hero, at least in my eyes.
No question.
For that thing over and over
Survivor.
again. Michigan, by the way, 6.5-point favorites.
I was pretty close. Mm-hmm. It's not bad. It's in the ballpark. Which, by the way, means it's okay to still play it. I know there are people out there. You want to talk about overreacting? Why even bother? We know Michigan and Arizona are the two best teams. Michigan beat them by 60. What are we doing? It's best of one.
That's the
Let's
beauty.
play the game.
The beauty of the tournament.
Maybe Michigan will be that good. I mean, their average margin of victory, I had Blakemore added up yesterday. I think it's like 22, 24 and a half. That's an impressive margin of victory for a championship run. So they may be that dominant again tonight, but it's okay to play the game. And the idea that why are we even bothering with this thing? It gets a little bit silly. I would think by now we would have learned that when it's best of one, how many weird things have we seen happen? National semifinals or national championship
over and
game?
over,
over and over and over again. Again, I was there for North Carolina State against Phi Slamma Jamma.
1983.
Sitting not that far from the only guy in the whole place who picked NC State to shock the world, Rick Bozich. He picked before the game in the newspaper. I wasn't that courageous. I mean, Could it get any bigger than that? How about Villanova over Georgetown, for God's sake?
Huge one.
You kidding?
68-66.
What was that
final?
Point spread? I got to believe it was double digits going into that game. And Phi Slamma Jamma, I wonder if that was double. I bet you it was close. Right?
Had to have been.
In any case. Let's go to, I mentioned off the top of the program that we are indeed, you're the definition of insanity leader. Are you familiar with the famous quote that has apparently been roundly misattributed to the man who discovered or invented, however you want to look at it, the theory of relativity, your guy, Mr. Albert Einstein? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Hear it all the time.
We've all heard it.
Yep.
Turns out we don't think it actually came from Einstein. That, in fact, it was more likely that it is, let me see if I can find it. I had the background on it. The belief is it may have originated with within 12-step recovery programs, like Al-Anon.
Oh, okay.
Things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's been able to pin it down 100% true. But we can agree that even though that's become a cliche, and whoever came up with it, it's a fair question to ask, and it applies to so many things in 2026. We'll get into some of those today, maybe some for another day as well. But I was thinking about Einstein because I did think he originated it, and I was thinking about the definition of insanity comment today. As I'm reading, well, let's go more broad-based first. As I'm watching the Minnesota Twins do what they've tended to do, which is lose another series, hit rather poorly, and they find themselves now with the Tigers in town. What are we starting, 3-6? I
Twins
think we've lost 2 out of 3 in 3 straight series early.
That is correct.
So we sit at 3-6. So as I'm watching this club, the way they've been put together, the strengths and the so many weaknesses, there's a part of me that was screaming, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. With these owners, with this operation, no matter what the first name of the poll is that's involved, it definitely feels, again, very much like insanity. Gutting the bullpen last year, cutting the payroll, now, I think over the last 2 seasons, something like $65 million a year as well. Or I should say payroll overall, $65 million on the payroll, in that range. But I'm also thinking about the Einstein quote as I'm reading. Did you read the latest piece from our guy, Aaron Gleeman?
I did not. It's about hitting lefties, right?
Yeah. Gleeman has been on this for a while, almost to the point where I think he told me he's utterly and completely aggravated management with his obsession with it.
I saw the headline, and I think I had the same reaction that you eventually came to, which led me not to believe it. So go ahead.
Well, I guess in this case, the definition of insanity, that it would be defined as continuing to put lineups out there that simply cannot handle left-handed pitching.
Right.
Over and over and over again. And even continuing it from season to season. And he lays out, I won't bore you with all the numbers, but they're all there. He goes back all the way to the Bomba Squad season of 2019.
Simpler times.
Where we led the majors with an 872 OPS against left-handed pitchers. We had more dongs against lefties by any team in Major League Baseball history, and the highest slugging percentage off lefties as well. Over the 6+ seasons then, or since then, the Twins ranked 21st in OPS versus lefties, placing outside the top 10 every year and never producing an OPS above 732. And he says, look, it's early, but it's already trending in the exact same direction through these first 3 series in which we've lost them all, and now has started the season with a very recognizable 3-6 record. He says, look, it's a small sample size, so it's probably going to get a little bit better. But he says, how is it not insanity to continue to lean more and more into lefty hitters with what he calls lopsided splits in need of shielding from lefties. Because the way you're supposed to do it is you've got some right-handed options on days when there's a left-handed pitcher. And as it turns out, I think there's a quote in here from our manager that we're going to get face 8 lefties in the first 16 games, which is unusually high.
Yeah.
That might not hold up. But his point is, here's the we call in the business of the nut graph of this piece. It's becoming a running joke on my podcast. Every offseason, the Twins are seemingly in need of multiple right-handed hitters to platoon with a logjam of lefty bats. And every offseason, we highlight the low-cost free agents who fit that description. And every offseason, the Twins ignore that need entirely. And his theory is that this offseason might have been the most glaring example of what we're talking about. He mentions we've got Wallner, we've got Larnach, we've got Cody Clemens atop the depth chart at 3 offense-driven positions, right? And all 3 sport a career OPS below 650 off lefties. And nevertheless, the Twins did not add what he describes as a single good right-handed bat. Instead, offseason additions, your guy Caratini, and Josh Bell switch hitting veterans, but they're weaker from the right side. Each of them was sub 725 OPS versus lefties the past 3 years. So, I asked him this during a break. Maybe I asked it during his appearance. I don't know. What do the Twins say about this? Because if this isn't what Einstein had in mind when he didn't utter the famous quote that we've been talking about here, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, I don't know what it would be. And look, you could say, well, are you really going to make this the hill you die on? There's so many other issues for the Twins. This seems small in comparison, but it really isn't. I would say it reinforces the notion that we are living with the Twins the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over. Because if you're as limited as this team is, don't you want to give yourself the best chance? And the point here is they didn't necessarily have to spend a lot of money to consider some of the relatively cheap options from the right side, but they haven't. So we're back to what's the point of what we're doing in this regard? Then again, what's the point of anything right now that the Minnesota Twins are doing? I guess that's the comeback, is that this feels like a piece of the same stuff manifesting itself over and over again about different issues. And that's a large part of the reason, I think, why you're probably channeling Albert Einstein today if you're an average Minnesota Twins fan, because you might say to yourself, I think it's a mess. I don't feel good about any of it, especially as long as these are the same owners. But I will pay attention enough a little bit to see if there might be a small victory or two within the larger victories that have nothing even to do with winning or losing games. Just give me a couple of victories, not just winning the ball strike appeal, but a couple other things that might interest me. And you say, well, how does this make any sense? How do you could say, well, sometimes problems develop during a season and you don't have time to react to them then, but then you allegedly, have meetings where you go, okay, what do we need for next year? We got to balance some things out to face some left-handed pitchers, even though obviously we don't have to do that as often as we have to face right-handed pitchers. But either they're just not interested in it, or they're interested in channeling what Albert Einstein apparently did not say.
So you saw the Gleeman headline, you read the story, you crafted this 15-minute opening segment.
Yeah.
I saw the story, I saw the headline, and my conclusion was, it's because they're not very good. That's why they can't hit lefties. And I moved on to my doom scrolling.
Well, but again, the point is that's the point of the story, is that if you're not he's saying you're not even giving yourselves options from the right-hand side to find out if you might be better. You're asking people who are basically, even the switch hitters,
not equipped for it.
They're not equipped for it. And what he's saying is, it wouldn't cost you wouldn't have to threaten the Dodgers payroll to at least acknowledge the issue by, okay, let's at least give ourselves a chip share and a chance in a couple of these cases. We know they're not very good, but here it's, so is this a form of tanking? I mean, is this how we're tanking? We don't talk about tanking in baseball as much as we do pro basketball, obviously, but what's the impetus? What's the end game for this? It's certainly, if your end game is to sell the team, it's not going to make them more valuable, one wouldn't think. So it's very, very difficult to know exactly what we have in mind here. But again, it all fits because on how many levels that we could lay out, ownership, we're selling the team. No, we're not. We're fine. We're keeping the team forever. We're just going to put another poll ad up front and everything's going to be fine after a period of time. And then we promise you we're going to start spending money again. When? Well, we don't know that yet. We do not want to put a date on that because then if we don't do it, you're not going to be happy with us. Let's see some progress. And then you say, well, how can you have a chance to see even minor progress, incremental progress, if, to lay out again what Gleeman wrote, you're not even giving yourself a chance when it comes to facing left-handed pitching. Doesn't even make sense. So at every level, top to bottom, this team is the definition of insanity. This franchise continues to be the definition of insanity, even if Albert Einstein, I don't think he was a big baseball guy, as I recall it, but it doesn't even matter. Let's get our first pause in now. Bradshaw and Brian, KFAN text line 64686. We will reboot it and prepare for Jonny Athletic at the bottom of the hour. Who knew we would have to be worrying about Timberwolves' magic numbers to stay out of the play-in? But it has come to this. Text and then prepare for Johnny. We went a little long in that first segment. I think you might be missing part of Einstein's equation. Maybe they expect the exact same thing. Well, then if they do, does that mean we're tanking? Does that mean we are deliberately trying to work against ourselves? And what's the upside of that? Because people, I had a couple texts where people just don't quite understand this. Dan seems to think the Twins care at all about baseball stats and not the bottom line. You're missing the bit. The point that Gleeman was trying to make was, even if all you're about is the bottom line, there were bottom line cheap options, ways to go different than the Twins went to help to deal with this lefty-righty imbalance. That's the whole point of this. Not to go out and get the best hitters in baseball to face left-handed pitching, that there's been this curious disregard for even what would be classified as very cheap items, or cheap, I should say, options in that spot. The manager, by the way, is, you got to love Shelton already because he's doing his best. He probably already knows what he's in on here.
I think he knew when he signed.
The fact that we're a little left-handed heavy may be something we have to look at as we get further down the road. But overall, knock on wood, I've been pretty pleased with our at-bats that we've had against the left-handers.
We know it's
what else can he say? And by the way, he may be right because it's a small sample size. But the point being made in this piece is this follows a continuing trend that goes over many seasons for your Minnesota Twins club. He mentions Austin Martin is now the starting left fielder versus lefties, which puts a lot of pressure on his on-base skills and speed to make up for an extreme lack of power for a corner position. And in right field, the Twins don't even have a righty option, so Wallner, career .642 OPS versus lefties, plays pretty much every day. Thank God for the Twins that also they can go with, because I think it's what every Major League Baseball team does. You can go with announced crowd, which means announced tickets sold.
Allegedly.
In attendance.
Yep.
And even that, you could say, is that truthful? I have absolutely no idea. There's no way to know. But it's just so funny because in any other context, if the numbers looked as out of whack as what you saw in the ballpark, admittedly in crappy weather, but in the ballpark, and the announced number, the cackling that people would do in my business about, well, you can announce whatever you want, man. People had their own sections. I mean, it was just there was nobody there. And sadly, that might be as good as it gets. Now, the weather will improve, presumably.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it was
sparse.
I didn't even think, I think they said announced was 36,000 for the opener, and there was nowhere near 30. There, maybe 25, maybe for the opening game, and after that, it was like I said, hey, come on in. Did we do beers, the $2 beers all weekend, or just for the opener?
I think it's every game.
It is every game now?
Before the first pitch, I thought. I can't remember exactly the specifics, but I thought it was for most of them. Thought that was part of the whole appeal.
You might be right about that. Yeah.
They made like $50,000 on opening day on that. I did see that number over the weekend.
How hard is it? How is it so hard to find right-handed hitters when left-handed people only make up 10% of the world's population? I don't know, because apparently they were out there. I'm going to take Lehman's word for it that he's got the list. He keeps these lists. And again, that doesn't mean the team has to abide by the Gleeman list, but it just seems as if we're early. It's something I think we talked about with him in studio. And again, you can argue, Dan, Rome's burning, and you're worrying about this little brush fire in Naples. I mean, what are you doing? But it's all part of the same thing. To me, it speaks to so many of the larger issues, and in this case, it doesn't have to be very expensive. I don't even remember what pick overall did we have last year. We didn't have the number 1 overall pick, did we, in the draft?
The Twins draft?
I mean, the amateur baseball draft.
I'll have to look.
I don't know. Because I don't think we're tanking that same way, are we? I don't think that there's baseball tanking the same way unless...
Well, there's no point because you're drafting an 18-year-old usually.
That's also true.
So you're drafting for 5 years from now, basically. 2 or 3 years.
Do we have a baseball lottery, or is it your worst record you get the best player? I mean, number 1 player.
I thought it was the worst record, but
I thought it was too.
I don't pay as much attention as I probably should. Or maybe I pay the perfect amount of
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the reality of it. Let us prepare. Don't forget Tim Cheetah at 5:30. That will be fun. I know people always love when we get an umpire perspective on this show because people are so supportive and kind and decent when it comes to umpiring and refereeing and officiating. He's at 5:30. Randy Kay to talk big picture, A section, trip back to the moon kind of stuff. I think, in fact, on the new journey, we've already set a couple of records, and we're off to a very, very good start as well. And when we come back, Jonny Athletic on the state of his favorite basketball team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, after another unimpressive setback at home, eventually turned into a blowout at the hands of the much improved, I might say, Charlotte Hornets. So are we actually in danger of falling all the way to the 7th pick into the play-in? Is that actually now on the table? We'll discuss that and the state of his team next.
It's time for Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, and he's on with Dan Barreiro right now.
By the way, before we say hi to Johnny, or as we do, we'll give you details on what's now classified as the modified amateur baseball, Major League Baseball player draft, because it is a little bit more complicated. Has been the last several years, more than simply worst record, you get the number 1 pick. We'll give you some background on that in just a minute to follow up for the purposes of accuracy. Johnny joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. He is, of course, brought to you by, as always, RBC Wealth Management. I want to read some numbers to you to begin our conversation, Johnny. 3 for 14, 5 for 14, 6 for 16, 5 for 14, 3 for 15, 5 for 13, and 4 for 12. That's the shooting numbers the last 7 games for your guy. Once upon a time, the 6th man of the year, Naz Reid. What is going on with him?
Yeah, I think it's been probably as brutal a stretch for him as I can remember in the last several years. Like, he's always been a little bit streaky here and there, but never anything like this. And right now, when you watch him play, I really think his shoulder is bothering him. Every game, he is grabbing at it several times a game. He's wincing in pain. He's trying to get through it. And I do think that he's been dealing with this for more than a month now. And I think it's kind of, it looks like it's weighing on him mentally as well. You watch the energy that he has, you watch kind of the body language that he has, and none of it looks good right now. And for a long, long time, he's been kind of their cheat code. He's the guy that comes off the bench with a dynamic game and a unique size skill match and really helps them kind of get on top of opponents in that second unit. And he's just not the same right now. And it's a big one of many reasons, but a big one why they are struggling so badly right now.
All right, here's the essential text that will determine why you make the big money, because we have been to a certain extent with this team here before. So there's an instinct that some fans have, which is stop panicking. This isn't good, but we got several injuries. They're obviously being cautious regarding those injuries, so those players will be available in the postseason. We know we can play with the teams that we're going to have to meet in round 1. So here's the way Marshall in Minnetonka conveys it. 2 years ago, everybody thought we would get smoked by the Suns. We swept them. Then we beat Denver in 7. We did the same thing to the Lakers in the first round last year when people were picking against us. If we get everybody healthy and use that week off to our advantage, he's assuming we're not going to be in the plan, why can't we replicate that again? That's the $64,000 question, because there's equity there, but is it automatically true that you can fall back on that yet again on the basis of what you are seeing close up? Because you've been around this team not only for home games lately, but for road games as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, what I have said for much of the season, and what I genuinely believe this, is I do think that this core, this coaching staff, these players deserve some benefit of the doubt given how eerily similar their finishes to the last 2 seasons went and then what they did in the playoffs. So I think that at this point today, just panicking and saying it's over, they're not going to make it, this team is cooked, is wrong. That's the wrong approach to take. That said, one of my jobs, as you know, Dan, is like you document the day-to-day. And right now, where this team is, and kind of like we've talked about on this program a lot all this season, they are a group that has yet to really kind of deliver some sort of statement run that says they are capable of putting it all together. I think that my feeling has been for much of this year prior to the injuries that they were playing bored with the regular season and that they believed that they could flip a switch. Obviously, very dangerous and immature approach. Now, though, the problem is that Naz Reid is banged up, Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards are hurt, and so it's not as simple as they just have to flip a switch. There's a lot more that is going into it right now. And so they're going to have to really buckle down. First of all, they got to win 2 more games and then use that week off to really prepare for whether it's the Lakers or Denver or whoever in the first round and get themselves healthy and get themselves going. They can absolutely do it, but I don't blame fans who want to look at this and be very concerned with what they are seeing at this point in the season.
To your point, and this is what I think people, if they're being honest, have to include in the conversation. A year ago at this time, actually a year and a month ago, starting with early March, I'm looking at an 8-game Timberwolves winning streak. Then I'm looking at, starting March 28th, a 5-game Wolves winning streak. And then I'm seeing the last 3 games of the season, a 3-game winning streak. So what were they? Was it 20-5 down the stretch, 15, whatever it was?
17-4 last year, yeah.
Albeit against, I think it was a slightly softer schedule down the stretch than this year. They were ramping it up in a way that, frankly, they haven't. Now, again, they're injured. They're injury riddled right now as well. But that's a part of the difference that I think people have to come to grips with. Doesn't mean they can't, but it means the conditions. Randall coming back off the injury, playing his butt off, the whole bit, seemingly transforming everything. All of that in the regular season, I think, was part of what led to the confidence that, we can go on a little run again, even though we're in the 6th spot.
Yeah, I think so. So, both of these, when you juxtapose this season against each of the last 2, you're right. Last year, they got healthy late February into March and then really started going on a run. So you started to feel better about that leading the playoffs. The year before, it was, in 23-24, they got off to a great start and to the season, and they were in the number 1 seed for a while, and they were looking really good. So both of those seasons had extended stretches of very good play. So even right now, Dan, if this team was struggling the way that it was, but let's say January, December, they had a stretch where they were 22-6. You'd say, okay, we have seen this team together really play well, really perform, really have a good spirit about them. But when the head coach is saying after the game last night, when I asked him about the spirit of the team, and he's saying we feel like we're a million miles away from the team that we think we can be, that's alarming because the playoffs are like right around the corner, not even a mile away. And so it just speaks to a group that feels like a lot of things have to come together in a short period of time. I think it can happen. I think it's reasonable, but it's also not, I would be lying to my readership and I'd be lying to the fans if I said there's nothing to be concerned about here. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. All
right, let's play a game that I never thought we would have to play. What the Wolves' magic number is to stay out of the play-in. They actually put themselves in a position where if you look at the schedules of the Wolves, well, especially the Suns, you go, well, Phoenix might be able to close with 4 straight victories, especially if Oklahoma City mails it in, which they rarely do, but who's to say that's the last game of the season. So we're at a point now where, we've got a magic number of 2 for the Wolves. Any combination of Wolves victories and Suns losses that add up to 2 means we are in the 6th spot, or we're certainly not going to fall into the play-in position. Should Wolves fans actually be worried about it? And do you think the coaches are at all worried about it enough that they may reconsider being as conservative as they've seemed to play it regarding injuries to this point in terms of bringing people back?
Well, I would say, first of all, I honestly don't think they've been conservative on the injury front, Dan. I think that they are just like playing the hand that they're dealt. I don't think that, they tried to bring Anthony Edwards back last week, and then the pain kind of resurfaced in his knee, and so they had to put him back on the shelf. And Jaden McDaniels is still out, and so I don't think there was an option to bring him back any sooner either. So with this team and the way that it's going right now, you certainly can't take for granted that 6 is going to be there. I mean, they have to win too. The good news for them is they play at Indiana tomorrow, which has 18 wins on the season and is trying to lose every single game. And then they play New Orleans on the last game of the season, and they have 25 wins, and they're not good either. But, Zion plays well against the Wolves. And so then you have Orlando and Houston in between, road games. So it's not guaranteed that it all works out and the Wolves, get into the 60. They could lose all of these games and give the Suns that spot. But I would say if they do, they didn't deserve to be there in the first
Absolutely.
place. If you cannot beat the Pacers and the Pelicans at home when KG is going to be there on the last game of the season to clinch a 6 seed, then you don't deserve to be there at all.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. When you say the Pacers are trying to lose, how obvious do they make that? Do they sit people, or are all their best people out anyway, so they don't really have to sit them because they're already sitting?
They have some guys that have been out, with Halliburton and a few others that have been legitimately injured, but you see some of the lineups that they're running out there, or they will also be one of those teams that they'll play some guys through 3 quarters, and if they're winning the game or right in it, Rick Carlisle just says, hey, maybe I need to give these young guys a chance, and maybe give this G leaguer, this two-way guy, 12 minutes in the fourth. And so they are absolutely all intentional on trying to get as low as they can, because with some pick protections and things, I think they need to be in the top 4 to secure their pick. And they are 1 game ahead of Washington right now in the race for the worst record. And so they are bending over backward to dump these games as much as they can. And so, if the Wolves lose that one tomorrow night, it's a complete disaster.
Who's Finchy mad at right now?
Well, I think he's mad at a few people. I mean, mad is disappointed, whatever term you want to use. But Dante DiVincenzo it's not that he's not shooting well these last 3 games, but I think that's less of a concern. More of a concern is he has 2 total rebounds in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
And that activity that is such a hallmark of his career has just not been there. Rudy Gobert, man, it's been hard to watch him offensively, and he's making terrible decisions, turning the ball over. He's not grabbing defensive rebounds, and so the team is getting their opponents are getting second chance after second chance on offense, and so he's just not playing very well right now. Naz, I don't know if it's mad or disappointed, but I think exasperated by his lack of shot making. I mean, there's plenty of disappointment to go around right now, and I think honestly some of it probably has to fall on him as well. He's got to find a way to get these guys out of their own heads. That is a coach's job when his team is struggling mentally. Find a way to take the pressure out of the balloon, and he hasn't been able to do that for most of the year.
Let's go back to the Edwards injury. You wrote about it in more depth, I think, in your most recent piece, basically saying it's the same injury that kept the Golden State Warriors' Steph Curry, who, of course, we could have drafted twice, out, was it 27 games, I think?
Yep.
And, I think whether you intended to or not, that gets people's attention. Like, oh my God, there's a big disparity in age there. What kind of condition is this? So, I get that the Wolves, I'm assuming, are telling you he's going to play in the playoffs. But is it considered the kind of chronic condition that might well end up dramatically affecting what he's capable of doing? How should Wolves fans feel about the detail you're now getting about this injury? And the possibility that this is going to be an ongoing thing that's not, even if he plays, it's not going to go away.
Yeah, one of the things that is really apparent with this specific injury, which kind of colloquially is called runner's knee, is that there's nothing structurally wrong with his knee that anyone is concerned about with ligaments, with any kind of surgery needed right now, but there is discomfort and inflammation in there that can make it very painful. The frustrating thing, as Steph Curry detailed in dealing with it, is you don't really know when it's going to be a good day and when it's going to be a bad day. And so what kind of prompted me to go a little bit more in depth with this piece this morning was that, he comes back and plays well in Dallas, looks pretty good. Then he misses, a game because of illness in Detroit, and comes back on Friday in Philadelphia. Does not play well, but it was clear he was really, really sick from what I was told, Dan. And so I was kind of looking at it as, okay, he's still recovering from the illness, and that's why he didn't play very well. Well, then he comes out on Sunday and is unavailable, and it's nothing to do with the illness. It's only the knee. And so you talk to more people about it. You look at what Steph Curry has gone through and what he's detailed on the record, and this is an injury that can kind of fluctuate. And again, like to reiterate, there's still everyone around Anthony Edwards and in the Timberwolves does believe that he will be okay and be able to play in the playoffs. But there's also an acknowledgement that this is a really tricky thing, and it can come back, and it can, there's not a linear kind of improvement method or treatment program to get him ready like right now. And so it's possible that he will have to deal with this, in some way, shape, or form in the playoffs, or maybe, an extended period of time and another full week off before the playoffs will get him in good shape. But it's just unpredictable, and it's really tricky. And that's what makes it hard to figure out exactly how he's going to handle this going forward.
Is it, there was a lot of comments from Conley trying to hold things together in the role that he is in. Mm-hmm. Is it harder for him to do that if he's less a focal point? I'm just wondering what the vibe is that you feel or in the locker room. Because again, this is a competitive game until late in the third quarter, and then it wasn't. I mean, then they got run out of the gym at home again, and we know who they have out. I get all of that, but I'm wondering what the vibe is you get within the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wrote that, this is a team that rides the emotional roller coaster all year long, and right now they're in a sunken place. Like, you feel it in there. And I think one of the issues is that a lot of their prominent players right now that are left, Ant and Jaden watching from the bench, are quieter, brooding guys. Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid. Dante DiVincenzo is his own kind of personality, and without the energy and like kind of the kind of lightness that Ant brings to the table, really all they have is Bones and Io are kind of the more of the spark plug guys. Mike, you're right, is still trying to do it, but he is not as involved anymore, even though he is playing a little bit more lately. So this is a team that is struggling to find any sort of like lightning rod people to lead them out of the abyss. And that's why I do think it's on Chris Finch to do it. And if there is an absence of that kind of personality on your roster right now, the head coach has to fill it some way, somehow. And I don't know what it is. Does he take them bowling? Do they go to the Pecos River? Whatever they do, they got to do something to get out of this rut and get out of the mental doldrums that they are in right now. And there doesn't seem to be a player with the voice active, right now that is equipped to do that on his own.
I'm looking at the Pacers the last several games. I don't think anything can be taken for granted. They beat, everybody beats the Bulls. They beat the Bulls by 19. They beat Miami by 17. They beat Orlando 128-126. I mean, they're losing their fair share, but I'm telling you, at this point, the way the Wolves are playing, I don't think anything can be taken for granted.
You absolutely cannot, because one of the things that this team does struggle with the most is just hard-playing teams, like teams that come out and just bring energy and effort.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
That's what these guys the Pacers are going to do that. They're going to have a bunch of guys that aren't really ballyhooed, that are trying to get noticed by other teams. And so if, they do some shenanigans later in the game to really try to tilt the scales toward Minnesota, that may work. But the problem is like, it's not just an energy thing right now for the Wolves, Dan. No. I mean, they can't make any shots. I mean, if you can't make shots, it doesn't matter, who you're playing. You're going to be in grinds. And then if they are in a grind, do they go with the here we go again type of thing? Do they have the mental fortitude and toughness right now to get through it? They played really well and looked really good in Dallas against a very bad team. And then Cooper Flagg went and scored like 100 points the next two games. Yeah. So they're capable of doing it against bad teams, but you do worry about teams like the Pacers that really do play hard and will just make them have to earn it at the start. And the way that these guys are going right now mentally, that's going to be a bit of a tall task.
I know you've probably blown a lot of your travel budget with a number of trips lately, but I got to believe it's going to be awfully tempting to make the trip to Indianapolis for tomorrow night, given everything we know about that city.
Yeah, I mean, the city itself with the support that, for big events.
Correct.
I mean, where else would you want to be, Dan? I lived in Indianapolis for 2 years.
Right.
I was on the front lines of it. Yep, I know it. I've been there. I've experienced it. And it is one of those things where if you're not there, if you're not in it, you wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know, and you wouldn't be able to appreciate it. So everyone should go to Indy for a big event, I think. And yeah, that's the one last road game I'm not going to, unfortunately, because everyone in the world is there. It's just hard to get a hotel room, all those things, Dan. So yeah, I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to Orlando and Houston, but I will be desperately missing the pageantry of Indianapolis for a big event.
What is the layman's term for the Anthony Edwards injury? What do we call it?
Runner's knee.
I've got several texters saying that there's no professional hockey player alive that would be sitting on a runner's knee. They would be out
on
there
Ben Gessling runner's knee
to finish. I'm just don't shoot the messenger.
No, hey, I can't get Louis mad at me again. So I'm just gonna agree with everyone that hockey players are
they're special.
The Iron Men, and they're super special, and they're that's why they get all these big TV deals. That's why there's so much popularity in the game, and you can't that's why they get all of the coverage that they do nowadays, and is because hockey is great, and the players are great, and everyone is tough, and all of the things are going hockey's way, and none of it's going basketball. That's what I'll just say.
We will be in touch. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dan.
That's Jonny Athletic trying to stir it up. Even if when he says he's trying not to stir it up, he can't help himself, and then he stirs it